It is worth noting one important point. Dinosaurs went extinct about 66 million years ago. A million years ago, Earth was ruled by the Ice Age with mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and giant sloths. So our story takes us much further back in time, to the end of the Cretaceous period, roughly 68 million years ago, right into the heart of the age of dinosaurs. The last dawn of the long necks. The sun barely touched the horizon, flooding the vast floodplains with crimson light, where giant ferns grew side by side with the first flowering plants. The air was warm, humid, and thick with fog rising from the swamps. In this morning haze moved a herd of Edmontosaurs, massive duck-billed dinosaurs. Their low, trumpet-like calls echoed for kilometers, serving as a beacon for the herd members scattered among the dense vegetation. At the head of the herd walked Ala, an experienced female whose skin bore scars from past battles. Beside her stayed her calf Kai, whose large, curious eyes studied this strange new world with wonder. For Kai, every day was an adventure. For Ala, every day was a fight for survival. She was leading her herd to the great river. Drought had dried up many smaller water sources, and now only the large rivers could quench the thirst of dozens of tons of living mass. Ala knew that the open ground near the water was a trap. There was nowhere to hide. But there was no other choice. As the herd reached the sandy shore, the air changed. The buzzing of insects vanished. Small mammals scurrying in the undergrowth went silent. Ala stopped and raised her great head, noisily drawing in air. She caught it, a faint, musky scent of danger. The smell of a predator. Out of the tall horsetails, silent as ghosts, slipped a pair of Deinonychuses. They were small, about the size of a human, but their bodies were built for killing. Covered in mottled feathers, they blended perfectly with their surroundings. Their heads were lowered to the ground, and the morning dew gleamed on the sickle-shaped claws of their hind legs. They weren't hunting Ala. Their target was Kai. The herd reacted instantly. The adult Edmontosaurs formed a living ring around the young, letting out loud, alarmed cries. They stamped their feet, and the ground trembled under their weight. Ala stood in the front row, her eyes fixed on the predators. The Deinonychuses were clever. They didn't rush into a frontal attack. They began circling, searching for a gap in the defense. One predator would make a feint, drawing attention, while the other tried to slip through from the opposite side. It was a deadly dance of patience and strategy. But suddenly, the ground shook for another reason. It was not the pounding of dozens of Edmontosaur feet. It was the heavy, measured steps of something far larger. From behind a wall of cypress trees, snapping branches like matchsticks, he appeared. The ruler of this world. Tyrannosaurus rex. He was colossal. His head was the size of a small car, and his jaws could crush the bones of any creature. The Deinonychuses, seeing him, instantly melted back into the jungle. In the face of the supreme predator, all other conflicts lost their meaning. Panic swept through the Edmontosaur herd. Their defensive ring collapsed. The Tyrannosaur was in no hurry. He knew that fear was his best ally. His gaze fixed on a separated group, where Kai, screaming in terror, had fallen behind Ala. This was the moment the predator had waited for. He let out a roar that seemed to split the sky and charged forward. Ala, hearing her calves cry, turned. Instinct for self-preservation screamed at her to run, to escape with the rest of the herd. But the maternal instinct was stronger. She spun around and rushed straight toward the tyrant. She could not defeat him in battle, but she could buy time. She let out a thunderous cry, drawing the predator's attention to herself, and rammed her massive body into the side of the Tyrannosaur. The blow was surprisingly strong. The giant staggered, shocked by such audacity. It was enough. Kai, seeing his chance, bolted for the river. The enraged Tyrannosaur snapped his jaws, nearly catching Ala's tail. She leapt aside and, without looking back, dashed into the water after her son. Edmontosaurs were excellent swimmers. Their powerful tails and webbed feet gave them an advantage in the water. The Tyrannosaur stopped at the shore, roaring with fury and frustration. He was king on land, but the water was not his realm. He watched as Ala and Kai's heads moved farther away toward the opposite bank, where the rest of the surviving herd awaited them. On the far bank, exhausted but alive, they regrouped. The herd was smaller now. Not all had escaped, but they had survived. Ala approached Kai and gently nudged him with her broad snout. He pressed against her, trembling. The sun rose higher, dispersing the mist. The world seemed calm once again, but Ala knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Danger was always near, in the shadows of the trees, in the depths of the river, in every rustle. Survival in this world meant never losing vigilance, always being ready to fight, and never giving up. And as she looked at her herd, at her calf, Alla knew they would fight. Until their last breath. Until the last dawn.